I will introduce myself. So my name is Meyer Waden. Lars is my first name. Meyer Waden is my family name. But the title of the presentation and the paper is Big Data and Firm Performance, the Roles of Market-Directed Capabilities and Business Strategy. It is published in Information and Management, one of the top journals, ranked 4 or A+. It is co-written together with my co-authors Sampa Suheinemi, Andreas Munzel, Alex Sabler, and Dietmar Straub. The aim of this presentation is to show you the content and how big data impacts firm performance, but even more important is how to structure a research paper, and thus also how to structure your thesis. That is also another target I would like to pursue with you today. And so even if you don't understand some technical arguments or points, it doesn't matter. It is important that you understand how to structure your thesis or how you structure a research article. And that's also another pedagogical aim I want to pursue with you today. The highlights is that we are using a highly known theory in business research. It's called research-based view, which I will explain you in some instance. So we use an established theory, and that's always important also for you when doing your research. It is important to find a theory that fits to explain your phenomenon. And that is always a good point. When you have a theory that fits, then it's very important and very helpful to explain your results. And so we start from an established theory, research-based view, the research on big data, on IT business, value paradigm, and market-directed capabilities. And we suggest that resource complementarity of big data, which we refer as big data resources, primarily improve firm performance by enhancing the marketing-directed capabilities, which is the marketing department. And these positive effects are accentuated in firms pursuing a differentiation rather than a cost leadership strategy. I come back to the structure of your thesis. So your thesis, you start with an introduction. And this is actually the management context. You're all managers. So you know the context in which you situate your thesis. So it is important to explain why your thesis or why your research is important for managers, but also for researchers. So this is the management context. So what is your contribution? Why it is important to do research on a topic you want to work on? In this case, if we come back to the article, it is about big data. Big data is also a big issue in China, and China wants to become the industry leader in big data management and business intelligence through artificial intelligence. So it's a very relevant topic. And if you look at some figures, 90% of global data was created in the last 2 years alone. 90%. And so this means that in thousands of years, we created very few data. And actually in 2 years, the major part of our data or big data was created with a rate of 2.5 trillion of bytes of data per day. You can see here also the references. And so this is a reference I found on from the IBM Marketing Cloud Institute. The volume of data is growing exponentially. It doubles every 6 months. And so it's an exponential growth. And by 2020, there will be more than 16 zettabytes or 16 trillion of gigabyte of useful data. And what is this data? It is not only consumer behavior, it's text data, it's image data, IoT data from smart connected objects, smart homes, household appliances, robotic assistants, biometric sensors, but also real-time behavior coming from retailers. If you look at the retail sector, stores like Carrefour, the French retailer with its more than 12,000 stores in 30 countries, collect big purchase data about hundreds of thousands of stock keeping units, which means articles bought on a daily basis by more than 30 million of loyalty program members only in France through billions of transactions. And so you can imagine when you're doing your grocery purchases in a store. You can imagine the big data that is collected only for you, because in average you will buy something like 50 to 100 items, and if you multiply this by, if you buy every week, 52 weeks, and over your lifetime, this is a very big part of data, which is very useful for the retailers because they can use that to better have custom information about you and to better do personalization. And recent advances in data technologies and better access to customer information. So through the evolution of technologies and through web-based channels such as E&M commerce, social media, IoT sensors, videos, audio, and loyalty programs, companies have big opportunities to generate very big customer data information. On the other hand, the vendor market for big data technologies has grown by 40% annually. So, which means the software to analyze and to storage the big data is a very big market. So it is a market that with an important growth rate, and it's estimated to increase in 10 years from 3 billion to 50 billion of dollars. And the growth rate is still almost 25% per year. These data initiatives offer great potential for improving customer relationship management, marketing management through highly targeted personalization of products, services, and communications. So in other words, I come back to the retailer example. The more the retailer knows about us, the better he knows what we like as products or services, and the better the retailer can personalize and offer us highly targeted products. And this is in marketing a major challenge. Very important, and it's one of the hot topics also in marketing, how this data can be used to improve the customer relationship between the firm and the customers. And indeed, industry studies state that this big data management is differentiating and game-changing and could increase margins by 60%. And so in other words, not only we will improve the marketing efficiency, but it is estimated that also these big data management initiatives will increase profitability by 60%, which is very, very important. Here are some references, again, IBM, but also McKinsey consulting firm is predicting this important increase of margin. It is important also for your thesis to show the managerial context, which is very important for big data. And so we've seen the market is very important, but on the other hand, there's no research that this efficiency will be achieved. So on the other hand, the value potential of big data remains widely unexploited, as many firms are unsure of how to make use of big data, and they're cautious about investing in new information technologies or simply find big data analytics too complicated. And so in other words, investments are heavy, investments in human resources are very heavy, because to make talk and to make analyze data, you need human resources. So the initial investments might be too high. That is why some firms are reluctant. And there are also some studies that have shown that finally firms having deeply invested in big data management might have negative return on investment. And 50% of retailers consider that abundance of big data could harm their efficiency. And so we have big data from video, from images, from text, and so on. But on the other hand, this data might also be too big to get exploited, because our analysis methods are still limited. There's actually a future potential of improvement through artificial intelligence. On the other hand, we don't know a lot how this can happen. And we have also firms that now think that there's too much data, and too much data is difficult to exploit. So from this introduction, and this is what you will have to do in the future also for your research, your own research, from this management context, we derived research gaps. And this is what you have to find. You have now something like 1 year to find the research gaps in your research. And so despite big data's growing diffusion and potential benefits, academic research is scarce regarding how, when, and to which extent big data investments impact firms. And so in easy words, we don't know if big data creates value and how. And so research is lacking, is missing. Furthermore, research has to investigate how big data create value, impact firm performance through increased and improved customer relationship management, CRM, cross purchases, customer trust, loyalty, customer engagement, and customer experience. And so the data, is, I've said, can be used to know more about the customers, and through this knowledge about customers, it will become possible to establish more personalized firm customer relationships, which should increase the cross purchases, customer trust, loyalty, and engagement. And so from the marketing side, we expect a lot about big data management, but we don't know actually if this happens and how this happens, as there's no research. That is why, and that is also what we have to formulate in your research, where our research target is to examine how the marketing function can achieve competitive advantage by investing in big data resources. We have the two following research questions, very easy. How and to what extent do big data resources influence marketing capabilities? That is the marketing function. And ultimately, the business performance. And the second question is, concern the business strategy. Does the strategy pursued by the firm influence the business impact of big data results? In other words, so for example, again, a comparison between China and Europe. You have in China a lot of firms which are based on cost leadership. That is, they are not really innovators, but they are able to produce at lower cost the same quality. For example, it's not really the case anymore for Huawei, but if you take the example of Huawei, they started as a cost leader, and now you have Xiaomi, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, Xiaomi, it's a cost leader. So it offers a little bit lower quality or similar quality at lower costs. On the other hand, Apple is still based on a differentiation. Through innovation, they want to differentiate themselves from low-cost competitors through innovation and higher quality. And so, two examples of low-cost versus differentiation. Or if you take the airline sector, you have main carriers like Singapore Airlines or Air France, which are differentiating companies. On the other hand, you have low-cost carriers, for example, in Asia, Air Asia, which offer the lowest airfare for inferior quality. So the idea is now, does big data impact similarly the performance in those different companies? Does the business strategy has an impact on big data performance? So these are the research gaps. And so to come back also to your research, it is important to determine which are the gaps. So you will read the literature, and from the literature you will see what has been dealt with, what has been researched on about, and on the other hand, you want, with your research, contribute in this gap. You see here the small gap on the slide. So our gap is actually to investigate how and to which extent big data influence business performance, and do the strategies play an important role in this impact. And so in a little less than 1 year, you will be able, based on your literature review, to examine what is your research target and to see which are the gaps, that is, what has not been investigated yet in the literature, and to formulate 1 or 2 research questions. Often, in the beginning, you will have a lot of research questions, but the more the time advances, the more you discuss with your DBA supervisor, the more you will naturally have a reduced vision, and you will actually cut a large number of questions to simple 1 or 2 main research questions. This brings me to the contributions. So your aim in the thesis is to bring contribution to research, so that is to fill out the gap. So our contribution in our article is, or in this research, is that first of all we use well-known theories. Resource-based view of the firm, big data theory, IT business value theory, and market-directed capability theory. So the contribution that we combine all these theories, because all the theories have been used in the past in an isolated manner and not in a combined manner. And so we use all of them. And so we extend marketing, strategic management, IT business value research. So we are actually in the interface, not only, we're not dealing only with marketing, but we're dealing with 3 different domains. So strategic management, IT, and marketing, by using knowledge from recent literature. So we're doing a combined literature research. But above all, we are with empirical studies focusing on the business impact of big data, because these studies are scarce. So in other words, there are no studies. This investigation is the first large-scale empirical study that examine the action mechanisms and impact of big data on firm performance and how these outcomes are mediated by the market-directed capabilities. So in other words, does big data management impact directly firm performance, or is the marketing department important? This is an important question because actually today, with the uberization, more and more marketing is sliding into the hands of IT managers. And so the question is marketing still relevant? Is the firm function marketing still relevant? Is this enhancing value? Or does big data management, IT management, do we only need IT managers to create value? Then in this case, we would not need any marketing anymore. So it's a strategic management question. So we try to answer these questions. Fourth, firm performance gains through big data resources are contingent on firms' chosen business strategy. So again, we check if there are differences according to cost leadership or differentiation strategies. And finally, we test our conceptual model by using real data coming from 301 senior marketing executives, which are employed in US firms. And this is also what you will do after having done a literature research, after having established the gaps, after having established the research contributions. You will establish a conceptual model in which you, I will show this in some instance, which you show your hypothesis or the impact, the antecedents, and the variables which impact an output variables, a dependent variable. And this is called conceptual model. And so after having done the literature review, you will establish a conceptual model, which you will subsequently and finally test with real data, survey data coming from, in marketing, we mainly use consumer data when we survey consumers. It might be secondary data coming from databases, or B2B data, as in this study, coming from senior marketing executives. And the data is coming from the US. Now we have seen the introduction, research gap, the research contributions, what you bring to literature. And the next step is then in your thesis, the literature, actually your first main chapter. This literature review, we started our research with the resource-based view of the firm to obtain a competitive advantage, because this is a very established theory helping to explain why firms have competitive advantages on it. So the RBV, or resource-based view, it's a managerial framework used to determine the strategic resources a firm can exploit to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. It comes from Barney and Warnefeld. So the theory is quite old, established, but reused a lot of times because it is based that, because it's a very influential theory in marketing research, to examine the links between market-based resources and capabilities, firm performance, and competitive advantage. So we can see 2014, so the theory is still relevant because it is based on the idea that firms have resources. What are resources? And in your literature review, whenever you have a concept, like resource is a concept or a variable you will investigate on, you have to define it. So this is very important. Start when reading to take over the definitions you can find for the different concepts which are relevant for you. And so what are resources? Resources are all assets or capabilities, organizational processes, firm attributes, information, knowledge, which are controlled by a firm and that enable the firm to conceive of and implement strategies that improve efficiency and effectiveness. And so, in other words, all resources are in a firm. So human resources are resources. Marketing knowledge are resources. Financial resources are resources. Special knowledge are resources. Special patents to protect knowledge, technologies are resources. So these resources are combined in a firm. And this is a resource-based view, because the competitive advantage of a firm comes from these resources, which are naturally different. So again, if you compare Huawei or Xiaomi with Apple or with Samsung, they have different organizational resources. And based on these resources, they create the competitive advantage in order to be perceived different and superior to the competitors. So resources have to fulfill the following criteria. They should be valuable, that is, that they enable a firm to implement strategies that improve its efficiency and effectiveness. They should be rare, so not available to other competitors, and that is actually the case. So Apple should not access to Huawei resources or vice versa. That is what is creating the durable, sustainable competitive advantage. They should imperfectly imitable, and so should not be easy to implement by others. So again, in order to protect the firm, and they should not be substitutable. That is, not be to be replaced by some other non-rare resources. And so this is also called the VRIN criteria. And so resources are highly strategic and important for firms to create the competitive advantage, and they have an impact on firm performance. So firm-based resources may be tangible and intangible. Tangible means material, include physical assets such as financial resources, humans, or real estate, raw materials, machinery, brands, patents, trademarks, and cash. And on the other hand, you have intangible or immaterial resources which are embedded in organizational routines or practices, such as an organization's reputation, culture, knowledge, experience, relationships with customers or suppliers. And so these are actually, the intangible resources are more difficult to imitate because they are hidden in the firm. And so, in other words, the knowledge a firm has in form of organizational learning is very difficult to imitate. Or the good relationships a customer has with the firm, or the firm has with its suppliers or other stakeholders, is very difficult to imitate. So it's a highly durable and if you come back to this criterion, a rare, not imitatable resource, which is highly strategic to create a competitive advantage. For strategic resources to become sources of competitive advantages, it is important that they should be leveraged by capabilities via organizational processes that create value for the firm. And so here we come to our second concept. And so we have seen the resource-based view. The first crucial concept are the resources. We have seen which can be tangible and intangible. And the second important concept, which we have to define, are capabilities, which are a harmonized combination of multiple resources that distinguish a firm in a marketplace, so which makes it difficult to imitate, which is organizational embedded, non-transferable from firm-specific resources, whose purpose is to improve the firm productivity of the other resources and performance. And so, in other words, capabilities are sources of competitive advantages that can be called core competencies. And so it's a bundle of resources. It's an aggregation of resources. So the combination of resources become a capability. Why did we choose the resource-based view? Because it is a good theoretical foundation due to its applicability across information system and marketing, as well as strategy research. So it's used in these different domains in order to explain marketing and IS and strategy performance. So it's well established since a while. It focuses on within firm factors to explain differential outcomes. In our case, we want to know big data is a resource. So we want to know it's a within factor. It's a intangible, immaterial factor. So we would like to understand how these immaterial resources impact firm performance And third, it's a comprehensive conceptual network of IT-related and marketing-related resources and capabilities. We have established the theoretical framework, the general theoretical framework. You have seen what is the resource-based view. Now let's go closer to our topic, big data. So in our context, we consider big data as a resource. And big data is defined as, again, we give a definition, new technologies and application, specific skills, organizational practices required to analyze complex business data to better understand a business and make fact-based decisions based on this data. So information was always important in management science, but it becomes even more important now with these new technologies and specific skills. There is also 5 V's of big data, which means volume. So big data can be characterized by these 5 V's. Volume, so the storage and analysis of big data. Variety, so we have a lot of different types of big data, IoT, text, images, purchase data. Velocity, how quickly we can access and stream this data. Veracy, is this data fake data? Is it complete? Because a lot of big data is actually incomplete, and that is important to make it complete, because unless it's not very useful. And finally, the value of the data. Can this data be used to make money in form of better performance, but also in form of business models? Because you know, today you can buy big data, and there are a lot of firms whose business model is based on big data. For example, Google, Facebook. Facebook is commercializing, or you have in Asia Line, you have WeChat in China. Their business model is based on big data management, better knowledge about customers that firms can use to do more targeted marketing. So consistent with the research-based view, we identify 3 IT business value resources that form firm-level strategic big data resources. So first of all, big data technology resources, which are defined as information technologies that are necessary to handle big data. So we need the technology. So it's a tangible resource, so databases. Big data analytics skills, which are intangible human resources that have the knowledge to derive market insights from big data. And remember what said McKinsey. A lot of firms are reluctant because actually it's not very difficult to have the technology. Storage the data is not very expensive and it's not very difficult. But to analyze the data is much more difficult today, because you need data miners, which competences are difficult to find on the markets today. We have a third resource, which is organizational big data resources, so which refers to top management and culture support for big data related initiatives. Organizational big data resources, so refer to the culture. It's also immaterial, and it refers if the firm top management is not behind marketing and big data management, then the best initiatives probably fail. A lot of CRM, customer relationship management initiatives failed because of lack of involvement of top management. And that is why we consider also this culture, organizational big data resources as important resource. So we define in our resource-based view, we consider then 3 resources: big data technology, which is tangible; big data analytics skills, which is intangible; and organizational big data resources, which is intangible. These 3 big data resources should be conceptualized together holistically in a synergistic fashion in order to identify the combinations of IT resources required for achieving desired performance outcomes. And so individually, this big data resource does not bring anything. Consider the case you have IT, so big data technology resources, but not analytical skills. This means that actually you cannot analyze the data. So if you have a lot of big data but you cannot analyze it, it does not bring any efficiency gains. So that is why they have to consider holistically. Together, they should bring the desired performance outcomes. And so standalone resources are easy to imitate. Everybody can establish information in an IT system, but not all firms are able to combine all the 3. And big data resources driven marketing is a strategic resource So it should be acquired or developed for customer data analysis to get insights for marketing decisions for goods, services that better meet customer needs. In our context, so we've seen the firm resources, big data resources. The second crucial concept, as we have seen, are marketing capabilities, which are the strategic firm capability to understand and meet customer needs and deliver its products and services to customers. So, in other words, these capabilities concern the whole marketing. That is, the ability to do dynamic pricing, adapt the prices according to the target groups, the ability to develop superior products, to manage multi-channels, to do individual marketing communications, to manage marketing information, to plan efficiently marketing, to implement marketing, but also to allocate resources according to better customer, for example, on customer lifetime value calculations. And the selling capabilities that are carried out to encourage customer purchase. And so all these marketing functions within a marketing department are capabilities. And they actually vary according to the firms. Again, if you compare Huawei or Xiaomi with Apple, let's take Xiaomi. So sorry again for the pronunciation. The marketing capability is the price. Whereas Huawei and Apple is more on the product development and the channel management. And so the differentiation comes from an individual combination of these capabilities to establish a competitive advantage. And again, they work in a synergistic fashion. Like big data resources, marketing capabilities should be conceptualized holistically to account for joint effects of lower level marketing capabilities on outcomes. And so not only price will determine the success, but the combination of price, product, channel management, and so on will establish the competitive advantage. And so we have seen now big data resources, we have seen marketing capabilities, and finally, if you remember, a third research gap is to see the firm strategy as a moderator between the impact of big data resources on performance. And so we adopt there Michael Porter's definition of firm strategy. So firm strategy refers to how firms create value and competitive advantages compared to its competitors. Firms that try to gain competitive advantages through lower cost and cost leadership are internally oriented and focus on efficiency gains by reducing costs across internal processes. And so firms that focus on cost advantages try to optimize cost factors in order to be the lowest price actor on the market. On the other hand, firms pursuing a differentiation strategy employ an external focus to understand market environments, that is, their customers, competitors, and innovations. And so they don't focus on the lowest price. They can afford to require a higher price, but as they are innovative, as they have customers who are ready to pay for that, as they're highly differentiated from competitors through innovation. And so the cost factor is not an important factor. We can cite here examples of the luxury industry. Louis Vuitton, you all know the luxury brand Louis Vuitton, French luxury brand. They highly practice a highly differentiation strategy due to innovation, due to luxury image, and customers are ready to pay higher prices for these assets. On the other hand, if you take again the retail sector, Lidl or Aldi, which are hard discounters, which are probably also available in China, they focus on the process and cost reductions in order to offer the lowest price, everyday low price to the customers. A differentiation strategy focuses on marketing capabilities with market-directed activities. So marketing is very important, such as big data, market intelligence, managing customer relationships, personalization are highly important to get differentiation advantage. A cost leadership strategy focuses on marketing capabilities with price-directed activities. So the role of marketing is more important in firms that adopt a differentiation strategy as compared to a cost leadership strategy. And so this we would expect that big data management is probably more impacting firm performance in differentiation strategy firms than in cost leadership firms. And this is what we conceptualize in our conceptual model and our hypothesis. We consider that big data resources, IT infrastructure, analytic skills, and organizational resources, and so all the three factors that we have defined, impact marketing directed capabilities, that is pricing, products, channel management. So there should be a positive impact on marketing directed capabilities, because the more I know about my customers, the more I'm able to adapt prices, the products, the channel to the expectations of the customer. And the marketing directed capabilities impact and act as a mediator between big data resources and firm performance. And so there should be an indirect link of BDR on market directed capabilities on firm performance. But we also test, so this is hypothesis 1 and 2, but we also test the direct effect. Do we actually need market directed capabilities to impact firm performance? This is what I told you. If we found a link, a direct link, which is higher between big data resources on firm performance, then the link between big data resources on market directed capabilities on firm performance, then we could consider that marketing is useless. Then we could, the conclusion would be, we don't need marketing departments anymore. It is only necessary to have informaticians, informatic guys, big data resources, because there would be a higher impact on firm performance, which we conceptualize through satisfaction, customer satisfaction, market effectiveness, and profitability. And finally, we have our moderating impact. We consider that in different firms practice and differentiation, big data resources should have a stronger impact on firm performance than for firms practicing cost leadership, for whom the impact of big data resources should be less important on firm performance. And so we have here our conceptual model with our 4 hypotheses, and we control by firm and industry characteristics. So we want to see if these results are different, contingent on competition. We can consider, we probably think that in markets with high competition, big data should lead to higher firm performance than in markets with low competition. In highly turbulent markets, there should be also stronger impact. The same for technological turbulence. We consider that firm size in big firms, big data resources should have a higher impact. In service sectors should be a higher impact, and so these are our control levels. So we have finished your literature review with a conceptual model. This is the methodology chapter. We used a sample. We chose a field study methodology with online questionnaires, and the questionnaires were administered by a professional panel provider in the US called Research. And so we developed a questionnaire, and this questionnaire was sent out to major firms in the US, strategic business units in large firms. So we did not consider small and medium-sized firms, but only large firms, US-based B2C manufacturing and service firms that have invested in big data technologies. And we got a sample of 301 managers, marketing managers, who answered us. Here you can see the different sectors: finance, manufacturing, retail, hospitality. You can see here also the SBU revenues, the position of the respondent. So you see a large part: chief marketing officers, marketing directors, senior marketing managers, CEOs, the smaller part, and CRM directors. And so this is our sample. Our questionnaire was based on established scales. So this is also what you will see in the future. We have measure instruments with which we measure our concepts. So we don't develop it. It's like in medicine. Nobody would have the idea to develop a new measurement instrument to measure the body temperature. We have the thermometer. We have it with 2 scales. We have it with degree Fahrenheit. We have it with degree Celsius. But nobody in the scientific community would think now to develop a new measurement scale. And so this is also in social science. We have measurement scales, which exist, which you can find in the article. All our measures are adopted from scales which are validated in prior studies. We measure them on 7-point Likert scales from 1 to 7. Okay, then this is, I will overgo that. So there are some procedures to measure if these scales are reliable and valid. So I won't focus on that today because it's just in the beginning of your research. But you have to know that you will do some statistical analysis to see if your scales measure well your phenomenon. And we use regression modeling, also called structural equation modeling, which is also statistical model, which you will learn here during your DBA lectures, which is used to analyze our model. So here you can see the different scales. I will switch through quite quickly, but to give you an idea, how did we measure big data technology resources? So in our questionnaire, the questions, there are three items or 3 questions. Our SBU has a state-of-art big data IT infrastructure. 1, not agree at all. 7, completely agree. Our SBU uses big data tools to gain a competitive advantage. In general, our SBU collects more data than our primary competitors. So for all these concepts, we have the scales, so with different items. So the question was quite long. So we measured also marketing capabilities through pricing, product development, channel management, and marketing communication. So you can see here the different items. And so on. So all the different concepts were measured with existing scales. Profitability, marketing or firm performance we measured with customer satisfaction, market effectiveness through growth in sales revenues, customer acquisition and increasing sales to existing customers. So this is how we measured it. Okay, and then here are the results. Also in your thesis, so you have done in the methodology, you describe your sample, your survey, who you surveyed, which scales you used or which data you used, which analysis method you applied, regression, analysis of variance, or correlation analysis. So again, all this you will learn in special seminars. And the next chapter is the results section or results sector chapter. And you can see here the outcome of our regression analysis. So we can see here that all 3 dimensions of big data resources have a significant impact on marketing capabilities. We thus support hypothesis 1. So we can see it's a highly significant impact on marketing capabilities. And there's a high significant impact also on firm performance. So big data resources creates definitely a competitive advantage through increasing firm performance. And so we support hypothesis 1. We can see here also that big marketing analytics scales make the strongest contribution to big data resources, followed by technology resources and organizational resources. And so the hidden competence or resource, which is actually the know-how, how to analyze the data, to apply data mining techniques, has actually the most important impact. So this shows that some intangible resources are very difficult to imitate and create the most important competitive advantage. We can furthermore see here that marketing capabilities is a strong mediator of predictor of firm performance. So you can see here the regression coefficient 0.34. So has a strong impact on firm performance. And the indirect relationship between big data resources and firm performance is highly significant, thus supporting H3. So that's the good news for marketers, for me as a marketing professor, because if we showed that marketing capabilities are not a relevant mediator between big data resources and firm performance, then we could say marketing has no sense anymore. So we could stop all marketing departments. This is actually not the case. So the fact you have a big data department does not necessarily create a lot of firm performance improvements. It is mediated or increased, enhanced through the marketing department. That's the good news for marketers. And you can see here also, again, market turbulence is significant So in highly turbulent markets, big data management has a more important impact on firm performance than in low turbulent markets. You can see competition, technology turbulence, firm size has no impact, so it's not relevant. But you can see also in service firms, big data management is more important than, has a higher impact on firm performance than in goods firms, which is quite understandable, because in service firms, per nature, firms have stronger relationships and more contact with customers than in good producing firms. So the CRM, and CRM is related to big data management, is more important in service firms than in good firms. This is what we have just seen. Finally, last question, the moderation. So we can see here actually for firms practicing differentiation, the regression coefficient is higher than in firms practicing cost reduction. So we validate our hypothesis actually that the firm strategy moderates the impact, and so for firms practicing differentiation, having stronger customer relationships, big data management is more relevant, has a higher impact on firm performance than firms practicing cost reduction, which is intuitive, because again, these firms invest in relationships, invest in personalization, so they take over more advantages from big data management than cost leadership firms. And this is a summary of our model. Next chapter, once you have found your results, now it's important you have done the literature review, you have tested your hypothesis, now you come back to your literature review and compare your results to existing research, which we call theoretical contribution. Our contribution here is that we give to literature insights how use of big data results can improve market-directed capabilities and firm performance. And so we can see that it improves by almost 12% firm performance and marketing performance by 25%. We see also that effective big data resources require a set of critical complementary big data related IT resources, and our research implications is that actually research-based view fits well to test this kind of problem. And we give also, compared to the literature, in coherence with the literature, we see that resources have to be complementary, because one single resource does not necessarily create value. We see their difference according to sectors, so the resource-based view should account how these resources are deployed according to the business strategy. And we see that the firm strategy is the most important determinant of success, much more than the industry in which big data is practiced. And so, in other words, it's more important to consider firm strategies than goods versus service industry. An important chapter in your thesis is the manager contributor to practice, and you're all managers. So what does our research brings to managers? So first, firms choose to pursue differentiation strategy, get more advantage through big data resources than firms practicing cost leadership. Investments in big data management pay off by focusing on marketing capacities. So it's important to maintain and develop the marketing department, directly supported by the IT department, as BDR improves company performance and marketing performance. But the business benefits of big data depend on its ability to support. And we have seen that big data analytics skills are very important and strategic. So the firm has to invest in big data analytics skills, unless big data management won't have the expected impact on firm performance. And the balance of IT structure, human capital, cultural resources are necessary for effective BDR. So we need infrastructure, big data warehouses, we need data mining with human capital and software tools, and we need the management support to make big data management effective. Big data should be fully utilized to increase firm efficiency and effectiveness. And the last chapter are the weaknesses. As no research is perfect, and your research won't be perfect, you should be aware about that. So in the last chapter, you should show what weaknesses is in your research and what would you recommend as future research directions. And so in our research, there's a major weakness. because we have a single informant design with self-reported subjective data, which is a conceivable potential of source of common method bias. In other words, the managers at the same time answered about the impact of big data management and the firm performance. So there's a big bias. So naturally, the managers will probably say, yeah, my actions of big data is important. And so it would have been better to measure all the different concepts of big data resource marketing capabilities with scales, and to measure performance with objective firm performance measurements indicators, such as satisfaction, ROE, etc. But we did not have access because as the panel research company in the US sent the questionnaires in an anonymous way, we did not know the names of the firms. If we knew the names of the firms, then we could have searched with secondary data the firm performance and could have related them to big data capability, resource and marketing capabilities. This was not the case. So future research should take into account that. It's only one country investigations and one sector, B2C, and only big companies. So future research should multiply research in other countries, in Europe, Asia, or other sectors. And data from customers should also integrate it in order to measure the impact also of big data on personalized product service recommendations and subsequently loyalty. Are there any questions about the research or in general about the thesis in marketing? Because we have also now two of your colleagues who want to talk about the research, but before talking or giving them the main conclusion of our research is that actually big data management pays off if investments are done in marketing capabilities and we see also the strategies. And so this is the main managerial message I would like to give you. But the other more important message for you, as you're doing a DBA, is to show you the structure of a research. So you have seen in this article, we have seen, first of all, the managerial context. So we've seen why big data, why the topic is important. So for you research, you have to show why your research is important. So that's your job for the next couple of months, to show that your research is relevant. Why it is relevant from a managerial point of view. This is your job because you're all managers. So it's, I think, the easier part of your job. But you have also to show why this research is relevant for academic research. So this brings you through the research to your research questions and the research contribution. What do you bring to academic research, which is called academic contribution. And then the second chapter is the literature review, in which you will read a lot of amounts of articles to your topic. And this is your literature review. After the literature review, you will formulate your conceptual model with hypotheses and research questions. Then you develop your methodology. Who will you investigate? Which data are you taking? Which analysis method are you using? Then you will present your results. You will discuss your results. The discussion will come back to your literature. So you compare your results in line with existing research to show differences or similarities. If you have differences, you have to explain why you find differences. For example, related to data or to country, and you will probably use data from Asia, from China. Then you have to discuss why you find, for example, differences. And you finish with manager contributions. What do you bring to managers? What would be the message to your managers in your firm coming from your research? And you finish with the research limits. What are the weaknesses of your research? And what would you recommend as future research recommendations? So that is what I would like that you have understood today.